Joining us today on the Vaxa podcast is Troy Burling, General Manager of Ansett Defence. Troy, thanks for joining us, mate.
No worries, Todd. Thank you very much. I'm grateful for having the opportunity to be here and to have these yarns with you.
So, Troy, Ansett Defence have recently born into from Ansett Aviation Training. And you have had a very long and distinguished career, not only in defence, but also in the commercial world around aviation training. Tell us a little bit about Ansett Defence.
We were talking about aviation training capability, evidence-based training, human factors, human-machine interface, and building cognitive and psychomotor resilience in aviators, et cetera, all these topics that come with the environment. And then we got talking about how we could potentially assist or support efforts in defence. And that thought bubble then grew into something more tangible. Went from some initial discussions with other people in the industry to then it grew to an approved state where Ansett Defence simulation was born, and that's now transiting to Ansett Defence, because it's not just about simulation. It's focusing on what the jobs we can do for the clients versus our capability, and the method to which we do it. And we need to be method agnostic to improve the collective capability within the organisations that train with us.
That's fantastic. And mate, obviously, with your experience in defence as a operator, but also in the commercial world, delivering solutions for defence, you've seen many iterations, I guess, of training needs, training requirements, training methods. Ansett's recently developed and is continuing to develop a collective training methodology to enhance defence outcomes and personnel outcomes. You've coined the term you're preparing the warfighter. Tell us a little bit about how you think collective training can, one, enhance the warfighter's abilities and efforts, but also resource security.
If I look at sort of, yes, I was in defence for a long time, went through collective training evolutions, individual training evolutions, was responsible for delivering that training. As the S-35 of the deployment to Afghanistan, I was responsible for delivering outcomes, on the road to war. Is a term we use to pre-deployment, bringing everything together, designing solutions to bring that collective capability to a point where it could be certified for deployment. It's a very critical aspect. But in doing that, it's important to understand that there's three components to capability, and anyone who knows manoeuvre doctrine, etc., will know the components as the intellectual, physical, and moral components. And there needs to be a balance across all those three things, across all functions of an organisation, be it section, platoon, company, unit, brigade, in the Army context, or squadron, or or flight, or etc. in the Air Force context. Leveraging that understanding, we bring together solutions and tools that it's important to also not only practice and improve those people who directly deliver an effect, but it's important to bring out solutions, in my view, that exercises and practices the system. Okay, and the system is across a number of different battle operating systems. Again, to bring it back to the Army context, you got the manoeuvre BOS, or battle operating system, infantry, tanks, aircraft, etc. Then you've got combat service support, you've got combat support, you've got indirect fires, So you've got logisticians, you've got infantrymen, you've got aviators, you've got, tank operators. There's a whole bunch of capabilities that need to be harmonised in order to deliver an effect.
All the 5 domains essential.
Absolutely. Right. And so you think about all those individual capabilities across the domains across all of those domains, they need to be harmonised and to deliver a synchronised effect wherever the government wants that effect to be delivered. Okay, so let's call it what it is. We need to be able to project. We need to be able to project a fighting force or military effort in a manner that's sustainable and that's survivable. Okay, so the collective training piece is an important part in this, and it never ends. It always, in my view, it's always happening. Whether you can get a collective training outcome during an operation, because it's literally you just take the lessons learned. After each operation, you take the lessons learned. There is government agencies that do this in operation. New South Wales Health, the aeromedical evacuation teams, they do after action reviews after each mission, because it's an important piece, because there's always an opportunity to learn. And I often say to people that the care to listen is never miss an opportunity to learn, and therefore improve. And that's all a part of the collective training regime. So if you bring together a model, if you leverage those three components, you then devise a methodology to exercise all of those components, and then become better at each of those and balance the capability across the components, then in my view, you'll have a more capable force, right? So what our intent is, what's driving us is that belief, because then we can then improve by delivering a more capable force that has balance across the capabilities. We can then that's a step in the process to delivering a safe and secure environment in which to not only operate but survive as a nation, right? In regional, when we bring it to the regional security piece, like you mentioned. So you must establish the baseline, in my view, a competency baseline, and these things you can only do that if you understand what it is you need to be better at. And the way that you get to understand that is through feedback mechanisms and having tools to get that both subjective and objective feedback. And from there, you can then make both qualitative and quantitative assessment on where you really stand. And it's important that the maturity exists within organisations to do exactly that. Because at the end of the day, none of it is about, going down the path of ad hominem feedback. It's all capability feedback across the system. If we can be better, we can be better. If we don't need to be, all right, that's all right. We don't need to be as well, because you breach certification. That's all right too. But that's the decision for the delegate to make. So we bring together. It's an agnostic capability. So we bring together methodologies and tools that, in a collective sense, they deliver a improvement in collective capability. So and we focus on delivering the solutions that will target an organisation's perceived weaknesses or opportunities for improvement. And then we draw out the lessons to learn from that. And, we critically review. Now, when I say we critically review performance, it isn't to say, oh, you're rubbish at this or you're rubbish at that. You're not part of the team. It's the rationale here and the philosophy is to critically review means to understand the system as a whole, and then to make sure that the inputs and outputs for each constituent part are there, are meeting expectation, because it is through that, it's through having things correct in that manner that system will operate at peak efficiency and deliver the outcomes you need. It's about assessing the system, not necessarily the individuals within the system.
Yeah, right. So mate, obviously the new National Defence Strategy, when we talk about Australia, shade but not all the more projection force, so we're here to maintain what we've got, look after our own backyard. We then heavily rely on our allies, including the US and other members of our Quad and other allies. How can these types of training systems and methodologies, are they interoperable, are they interchangeable amongst these forces?
Short answer, yes. by design. Okay, so these are the systems. One of the elements of the solution we're putting together is utilised across NATO forces and NATO command itself. It's utilised in America. It's utilised here in Australia, or to a degree. It needs to be utilised to a greater degree, and that's been identified, and that journey is underway. But it's critical that we take success stories from elsewhere and implement them here, because then we know they work. We bring them together, and we can. That's how, in that way, we've been able to yield a rapid development, because we know they work elsewhere. We're using hardware that is used elsewhere as a solution. Again, it's a tool, and because we know it works. We're not here we don't need to relearn things. We don't need to reobserve things. There's a thing called doctrine, and doctrine is developed over many, many, many years, and at the cost of many, many, many lives. And that is those are documents that are full of lessons learned. So let's just refer to those like we refer to those when we do tactical planning. Let's do similar things when it comes to solutions. Bring together a solution. That's the brilliance of SMEs in this country, in my mind, is that we understand the requirement because we've lived the requirement, and we can very quickly go to a tangible solution. Now, I'm not advocating going immediately to a solution. Don't template the solution. That's not what I'm advocating. But what I'm saying is, because of the deep understanding of requirements, we're a lot quicker at going to solution. For example, the periscope sight during World War I in the trenches, a great innovation. So because they knew the requirement, you had to aim correctly in order to target the enemy. Oh, you put your head above the parapet, you're likely to get shot. So, okay, we can launch straight to a solution. You know what I mean? So it's that sort of ingenuity and innovative approach that enables Australian SMEs to deliver rapid solutions that are economical and that are efficient. But most importantly, we do work with our coalition partners. We have been doing for many, many years. So we also understand the lessons that they are learning. And we can then bring them together rapidly. And again, why go down a pathway where you've got to learn the same mistakes? To me, that's nonsensical. It's not economic. We don't have the 10-year, forward look, or the 10-year space and time to prepare now. Yeah, that's acknowledged. That is acknowledged now, both here in this country, and at a recent conference I went to, that was, boldly acknowledged on the stage. And their focus now is, well, it can happen tomorrow, and we need to. Interestingly, their statement, and this is in the aviation sense, is they need to survive day one, because there's a very real concern that we can't. So okay, if we haven't got 10 years to prepare, we need to survive day one. Well, what do we have to do? Traditional systems aren't helping. So, and that's acknowledged. The traditional way of doing things isn't helping at the moment. We need the innovators like those that came up with the periscope sighting system for an old 303. We need those innovators to churn out similar outcomes in a rapid sense, using the tools at hand. And there is operators, there is SMEs in this country that are doing exactly that, independently. Okay, independently, they are the masters of their capability, which is important to recognise, and they're doing it independently. And it's Ansett Defence's position that we bring them together in a collegiate manner, bring everyone together, tie them together to then answer a call that's being quietly put out there, and we're there to do a job for the local forces.
And one of the other things that we've been talking about for a while and working on for a while is how to solve one of the other bigger problems for all regional defence forces, and that's attraction and retaining personnel. We talk about the way that where does training actually start? Does it start once they're enlisted, which unfortunately, in some instances in this country can take up to 370 days. I was talking with one of our colleagues in the States the other day, Eddie Harold. What the US are doing now in the Navy is seeing if you can swim 200 metres, checking your knees and your blood pressure. The next day you're on a ship. You're learning at the coalface. It's literally sink or swim. How do you see, I guess, the training methodologies and strategies working, given the younger generation, although this is a generational shift, but given the tech-savvy generation that are coming through, the way that people are learning as well, how they get their information, how do you see what you're doing and I guess what the industry is doing can benefit not only the Australian Defence Force, but the US Armed Forces, the New Zealand Defence Force?
Great question. And it is actually something that's near and dear to me, noting that, I've got a child that's experiencing challenges through the recruiting system. But, at the end of the day, humans always absorb information, always learn. And I'm sure we could all, if we sat down and reflected on it, we could all identify within ourselves that the minute I have an interest in something, I immediately trigger a desire to understand it more. Whether I do it or not, actually, it's a different story, but I have this desire. Now, in today's world, we call those that are in today's world, or the general term given to represent that generation, digital natives. They absorb vast amounts of information through many different vectors on a minute by minute basis. You see, it's just extraordinary, the learning capacity, of those who are looking to serve their country, and or those who are looking to go for the next adventure in life. It's just extraordinary, and I it just, I am astounded by it, and I'm in awe, of the capacity to absorb information, to bring it in, and then just capture that information. Now, how you use that information, and for any given intent is, that's the next piece, right? So that's the next piece, and that's where this collective training piece comes in, right? So you've got to turn that information into something that's actionable, given the specific scenario that you're working on, in the business world and, even the military world, we call that intelligence, right? So we call it actionable business intelligence. So you can absorb all this information. You now got to fuse it into something that's worthwhile. But what I'm saying here is there's an intent to learn. There's an intent to learn. They want to, people want to learn, and they want to go further. When there is a delay, when there seems to be static, it's like glass, right? Glass is regarded as a static liquid. Okay, so you get the bottom of it over hundreds of years. The bottom of a sheet of glass is thicker than the top, so it's considered a static liquid. So we could sometimes sit there and go, the progress, an individual's progress through a system is that slow. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it, and it's not even a spoil. It's just the way it is. That's traditionally how the system is designed. Because we've had the time to be more rigorous about things, it is by design quite rigorous. But if we've already acknowledged that we don't have that time anymore, then we need to, be more agile in how we deliver outcomes. So we can follow the tried and proven methodology of a sequential process through the training and education continuum, or alternatively, and this takes a little bit more appetite for a bit more risk, we can do a simultaneous approach to things, where we can maintain the enthusiasm of the prospective recruit by delivering training that or delivering knowledge that can improve them in subjects like subjects like fraud awareness, security, public purchasing, customs and traditions. All these things that are available open source, right? It's out there. If organisations, need to recognise that the information is out there. It's there. It's everywhere. I can do a Google search on formation doctrine and come up with doctrine straight off the internet. We can do that now. So it's not that the information's not out there, but and I agree that the important thing is it's about it being quality assured and quality controlled. So how do you do that? You introduce a framework that ensures that there's a quality assured and quality controlled methodology for educating prospective recruits to a degree, to an accepted level, to an agreed point, so that if they ultimately don't make the cut from a medical or psychological perspective, then they can go away at the very least having learned something. Is it going to threaten national security? Well, you make sure it doesn't. It's simple, right? So in my mind,
because if you've got people who want to believe and belong into the system and into a brand, be it the ADF, the US Armed Forces, Senior Corps Armed Forces, any of the organisations in our region, you get them early. It's the baby dogs of the fence.
Absolutely. You screen them, you make them enthusiastic.
Yeah, and if you expose and protect your recruits at the young age to little bits and pieces and spread the fairy dust up over time, well, then you will often get someone who believes and belongs and says, I already voted all the profession.
Well, because you're shaping their moral drivers, right? So it's the intellectual, physical, and moral components, right? Mm-hmm. So you're shaping the moral drivers. There's many people way smarter than me that will tell you how to shape nations, right? In fact, vast amounts of money and effort is spent on shaping the psyche of a nation.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about here is, encouraging an individual's enthusiasm by delivering a method that enables them to grow and feel part of something before they're even part of it. Because there is a portion of society out there where that's all they seek. They want to be a part of something that they believe in. So empower them. Mm. It's to me, it's when I went through my recruiting, when I first joined the Air Force, right, as a radar technician, I drove up from the coast to Brisbane every single time because I was enthusiastic about enlisting and serving my country. Noting, my country of birth is New Zealand, but I love Australia, right? So. And I just wanted to serve the country because I believed in what the Air Force provided, what serving the nation was about. Now, again, my name's not Robinson Crusoe. I'm not the only one that feels that. I know plenty of people like that. And there still is. There will always be people like that. So we must give them the mechanism. If they're used to absorbing information through multiple platforms, then give them the tools, or give them the information to absorb. If they go looking and that information pool is shallow, then you're not necessarily setting them up for success, and you're not able to then leap forward from a developmental perspective, from an evolutionary perspective, and that person's capacity to understand the role. So you need to keep doing information push versus depending on them to do information pull. So many of us have had examples, or we've heard of examples where some very old-fashioned approaches are taken in defence recruiting. So I would contend that it's time for those things to move on. We need to move forward. We need to understand the environment in which we're operating. We need to not only do we need to go, we don't have 10 years anymore, but we need to then empower the populace to through mechanisms that recognise we don't have 10 years anymore. We need to give the information. We need to prepare people, but prepare them in a manner that shortens the collective preparatory cycle of defence. Through means that, that are easily deliverable.
But what do you say that we've operated from a certain cookbook, the Martyr of Full 1927 cookbook for a number of years? A lot of those pages are no longer relevant. We need to rip out some of those cookbook pages. We need to have a look, and not just the ADF, but all the organisations in the region. Let's have a look at what we train into. Let's do some front-end analysis on your curriculum. See what it is you're training for, what effect you're trying to achieve. Mindful of the type of people that we're trying to attract into the Defence Force, current personnel as well, but also thinking about the future. Like you said, we don't have 10 years anymore. We've got 3 years to maybe 6 months to be ready to what's going.
Agreed. We don't now. I'm certainly not promoting that we deliver training that goes into the heart of tactics, techniques, and procedures. That's not what I'm promoting here. What I'm promoting is a simultaneous approach to things where we can fan the flames of enthusiasm and deliver training that will make people feel like, well, I'm learning something here. I'm a part of something. And, and that training, again, it might be, the more administrative training that they do. And if it comes down to a psychological or physical medical reason why they can't join, because there will be still those cases, we need to understand that and we need to reflect on that and recognise that. But then that's all right. At least they've gone away having learned something, and that they could potentially apply some customs and traditions or some ethics elsewhere if it's worthwhile, right? I'm not saying that there isn't any out there. I'm just saying that there is some fantastic learning that can be done through the defence system that, some great leaders have come from it. Some not so great, but, some great leaders have come from it. So we need to empower people to and provide those opportunities to them, because then once we get to a point, you've seen, we can take 365 days to get someone from in the door to certified, cleared for operations on a ship. To me, that's atrocious. Okay. There's numerous examples, and World War II. Bear with me here. Technology is where it was at. All right, people were exposed to what they were exposed to at that time. So when I'm giving this vignette, let's just keep it in where it needs to be. In that, I'm not looking at it. People are a lot, and this is proven. People are a lot can have high capacity these days to absorb information and deliver outcomes. Right. Back then, the speed with which forces were raised and trained and then subsequently sustained was rapid mobilisation, right, for the sake of the nation. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're going to launch into World War III anytime soon, but what I'm saying is, if we were able to rapidly raise, train, and sustain a force to then go on and win a world war, well, surely there's some mechanisms that we can use that they used back then to then maybe improve the way in which we do things now.
Well, I was seeing the National Defence Strategy, which is obviously just being pre-released. Two of the main highlights are personnel and logistics. Right there.
Right. That's those are focus items. So, if we can identify that we don't have 10 years anymore, if we've recognised that, and where there's discussion and intellectual and academic discussion about surviving day one, when you start to bring these together and you go, well, okay, we might not be going into World War III tomorrow or next year, but why wait till then before you implement something? All right, so, and now in the tight fiscal world in which we find ourselves now, when there's enormous projects going on from a social perspective, which are important, then at the same time, you can adopt strategies and methodologies that are not expensive, that are economically viable to get people through a system and to a position where they can then undertake collective training and then be certified for operations. You can compress that timeline, and you could do that for advanced trades or advanced skill requirements in defence. You could do that for not so advanced skills requirements in defence. There's many different ways you can do it, and to then get people prepared for service in the military.
Given technology these days as well, everything's gamified. You need three other people in a classroom and death by PowerPoint with Sergeant Blogs telling this is how you do things. And and this gives us the ability that I think that we have, not only as a nation but as a region, to engage with people, not just younger people, but anybody. There are people who still want to serve their nation. Friends of mine who are into 40s want to join the reserves still these days because they believe in what we're trying to achieve. And absolutely, hopefully there's some more culture coming back into and respect that into our defence forces as well. So people of all ages and skill sets, want to serve their country. I guess it's then up to each defence organisations to want to accept that everyone from every walk of life, be they someone with a learning challenge or someone with a physical challenge. I don't think we can be too digging, but of course, my point being that with technology these days, it makes it a lot easier to engage and train and certify people, not just here, but collectively with our allies as well, whether they be in Indonesia, whether they be in Japan, so there's definitely, I guess, a lot of opportunity there as well for commercial providers to help defence and navvies.
Well, mate, we're engaging now via technology that years ago wasn't there, right? So we can, and I would contend that given the technology leaps that we have now, there is probably more opportunity to employ people to their strengths in areas that they traditionally, if they follow that cookbook recipe that you mentioned earlier, you had to follow this cardboard cutout, be able to, to run so fast at a certain time. And back noting that back then, yes, I acknowledge that everyone was a soldier back then, first and foremost. That was the mindset, that was the methodology. But let's break free of a fixed mindset and evolve into a growth mindset and recognize that technology these days, I don't know of anyone that does cyber warfare whilst making sure whilst running 2.4 kilometres in less than 12. And they're not doing it concurrently, right? So there is, I'm sure there are some people that can do those roles that actually don't need to run 2.4. You know what I mean? So my point is that the technology now we've evolved, right? As a society, as a population, we need to train to that. But the most important thing is, in my mind, is collective. Is you deliver an effect through collective capability, right? So, and how do you know? So you mentioned it just before. There's people that can do gaming, etc. This was a topic of conversation again at the military flight training conference. They're like, these guys and girls, they use Microsoft Flight Sim or X-Plane. Yeah, cool. And it's known that actually works. By the way, anyone who's listening, it works using those. There's a greater success rate on things for pilot training, for example. But their concern was, well, how does that person using that know what's good? Well, there's ways you can do that, right? So, I've alluded to them already. There's ways you can do that. And there's ways you can protect, your capability. There's ways and means to do that. That's the whole point. It just takes people to understand that, So, and I would say I would encourage it. Absolutely let people, because the people these days can absorb so much more information at a high tempo. Then encourage that by empowering them with the tools, the knowledge, and the skill to improve themselves, and then bring it together in a collective manner.
Speaking of which, too, and something that's topical, we talk about AUKUS, we talk about nuclear submarines, we talk about nuclear power. In Australia, a country, out of any country in the world that is ripe and perfect for nuclear power, it's Australia, given our vast distances between cities and towns, and the lack of energy resources we have at the moment as well. But then we talk about nuclear submarines, nuclear propelled submarines, by the way. Obviously, the training for the RA in the Royal Australian Navy, we're sending our folk over to the US to receive that training, because they've obviously got the lived experience. We talk about the lateral transfer of knowledge, something that we talk about in our front of brains, lateral transfer of knowledge. The skill sets and the experience already there in the US, we need to absorb that. When you talk about collective training in the submarine and the nuclear space, how do you see, the Ansett Defence systems being able to support those programs and that technology moving forward? And again, not just for the subs, if you talk about nuclear power generation as well.
Well, with technology these days in the virtual world and the mixed reality world, or what we call generally XR world, so that just denotes any type of reality in the technological sphere. We're communicating via electrons. So you can do collective training regardless of geolocation. You can do it anywhere. You just got to be connected. If you need a secure network, then you can do that too. Because every day there's systems and operations, working over a secure network. I do phone banking. So and I would suggest that money is one of the more important things to protect. So that happens on a daily basis. So these are things we do in our daily life. So how would Ansett Defence support that? Well, there's solutions we can do using different technologies as a tool, as the mechanism to deliver the training, to deliver the experiential or the evolution. So they're just tools. We then develop a framework that meets the minimum viable product for the organisation that requires the training or the scenario or the evolution. You put that together. You put some quality control and quality assurance filters over the top of that. So, because you've got to make sure that you meet the required standards and training levels at all times. You do the delivery of training face to face, separate locations via electronic means, and then you capture that performance, and then you report on that performance. Both you can drill down to individual, and but you do it collectively, and that's the philosophy. There's no secrecy. It happens all the time. You know what I mean? It's just bringing the groups together and having that collegiate environment to deliver the outcome. Right, that's the trick.
And does that work? As you mentioned,
you must have the performance feedback, right?
Yeah.
The continuous performance feedback, because it is from that an organisation. So we've spoken about individuals collecting information and absorbing it, and then being able to turn that into something actionable. An organisation will use the feedback loop from individuals and teams and groups. They'll use that performance feedback loop to then make the organisational decisions, informed decisions and actionable decisions, because they've got both subjective and objective evidence from which to act on. And that evidence is based on standards and quality guidelines as defined by the organisation, right? So, and again, this isn't anything new. There's studies into it. There's projects into it. There's the fact that the words performance feedback loop exist indicates that it's not new, right? So it's just about getting the mechanisms together and making sure that you can integrate them. That's the trick, right? Integrating them, and to the point where you can get rapid feedback, and you can then action it rapidly by modifying evolutions so that you can do the rapid turnaround. There's the trick right there, So You can't delay these things. And a human learns quickly, and absorbs information quickly, and you can retrain humans pretty quickly, particularly in the military space. And I'm saying particularly because that's my experience. Now, from what I've seen, people learn pretty quick. Depending on the evolution that they're going through, and they understand things quicker. So from an asset defence perspective, that's all we're focused on here is delivering the tools from which decisions can, delivering the tools to provide the evidence from which decisions can be made in a rapid environment, in a rapidly changing environment, and to test people to their greatest capacity. To make sure that you do, because these are environments. It's in these environments that enable you to do the wrong. It's the right place to do the wrong thing, right? So you can from which you can learn. The light bulb wasn't invented first time. You need to be able to be the best you can, and you need to be able to learn from mistakes. There's many books written on it. There's many teams that know about it. High performance teams, that's the background ethic here. So it's just stitching those things together, putting it into an integrated system, and then recognizing that, we must learn. We must have a growth mindset. We must move forward. Looking in the rearview mirror, it doesn't help us. We need to proceed forward, and the way we do that is by bringing together capabilities.
This is extremely riveting to me personally, but also I think to the listeners, because a lot of people just think that people jump in a plane or a ship or chuck a backpack on and give them a go and off you go, but it drops in all the strategic intent to it, and Trey's training and sustaining these our personalities. Whilst it's all rocket science, there is a way about to it, and you guys are really perfecting that. But mindful of time, mate, really appreciate you joining us today. Given technology, a bit of the talks on technology, I just want to show you something that I perfected. It's called teleporting. Just watch this. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate it.